Hey gang, welcome to the continuing saga of Let's Spin Our Wool Interrupted Rovings into Yarn. Bobo just came and nuzzled the tripod. Oh, now he's going to go and scratch the couch. And Tay-Tay's lying in the middle of the floor, purring. I love my boys, but sometimes they're so weird. All right, today's goal, gotta have your coffee, is this beauty right here. This is gray Gotland, 30 to 34 microns. There's 5 ounces of it. This is a beautiful tonal gray. It's got some darker streaks and some lighter streaks, and it's going to dye up beautifully. But first, we need to spin it into yarn. So, grab one of my spinning Bibles, the Fleece and Fiber Source Book, and we're going to go to the index and we're going to look up Gotland. That would start with a G. G-O. Gotland sheep. Wow, there's a lot on this. So it looks like it goes from 162 to 165. So let's go looking. All right. Well, there's tons of info on Gotlands. So let's have a quick read. So the fleece can weigh anywhere from 5 to 11 pounds. Staple length 3 to 7 inches. And they're often shorn more than once a year. Adults in North America and New Zealand are 27 to 34 microns, and in Britain they average about 35 microns. So that goes to show you how breeding works on different continents. So the lock characteristics, the relatively long, high luster, dense, astonishingly wavy, even curly wool, and staples that feel soft and silky. The locks are like shiny springs. Wow. Natural colors, predominantly grays from light silvery gray through charcoal to near black, often with appealing subtle variations in shading. I can see that. There's definitely variations in shading on this. So, dyeing using natural grays are exquisite on their own, and the underlying color will influence any superimposed dye hues. Well, of course, that's what we want. For both preparation and spinning, Gotland's relatively fine and lustrous fibers are slick and fly away. Bobo's interrupting with a good scratch. Especially in a dry climate. Open the locks slightly to allow the twist to get traction and spin directly, or flick the locks and spin, or comb, or depending on fiber length, card. Gotland is easier to spin into fine rather than bulky yarns. When you're prepping the fleece, it will appear very fluffy, yet when twist is added, the fibers nestle down together and make a yarn that feels heavier and has better draping qualities than you've been led to expect it will produce when you saw it unspun. It's slippery too, yet very rewarding. Gotland can be spun woolen for texture or worsted for smooth results. Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to spin a relatively fine single, and we will chain ply to try to preserve that length and luster. And I have 5 ounces, so this could take a while to spin up, but I'm going to get started, and we will come back when we have some yarn to show, and we will see how this is going to dye up. I'm so excited for this. Just dyeing yarn is very different from dyeing roving, which is one interesting thing. And the other interesting thing, of course, is going to be dyeing grays is very different from dyeing whites. Now, I have in here some white tops as well. So I'm going to be spinning those up as well, and we will dye them alongside the grays and see how they change in dyeing, like how using the gray fiber changes the color. All right. I know what I'm talking about. Honestly, I do. Just sometimes I have a hard time expressing myself. You know, talking is hard. So I'm going to take my Gotland fiber. Wow, this is pretty. And I'm just going to start spinning a relatively fine single. Oh my goodness, this sheds. Oh, I have to show you this. Hold on. Tippy down. This is just from opening the fiber. Do you see how much it shed? Wow, this is going to be crazy messy. What fun. It's a good thing I don't mind a mess. I'm used to this with my cats. So I'm going to get spinning. I'm probably going to find a pillowcase to use as a lap cloth so that it doesn't stick to my very sticky leggings. And then I will get spinning. All right, I'll be back in a bit. So I've been spinning this Gotland, and yes, it does want to spin thin. It spins thin beautifully, but it is so slippery. As I'm trying to draft it, it can very easily get away from me before I even get the twist in. So I am using a very short forward draw on a worsted spin, and you can just feel it's hard to show feeling, but it is so slick. It just wants to just slide right through your fingers and away. It's amazing. It feels fantastic, especially for a higher micron fiber. So it gets a little hairy in the ply, but you know what? It's still so silky. And it's not too ropey, which is generally the problem with the Leicester wools. I think this would make amazing for knit lace. I could be wrong, but we'll see. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know what I'm finding out as I'm spinning this fiber, and it is definitely slick. Definitely slick. So if you're spinning this for the first time, hold on to it because it's going to just slip right through your hands if you don't. It's beautiful though. It's just lovely. And it takes itself down to spin thin. It just wants to do it on its own. You could even take this right to a really delicate lace weight, which is not really what I'm aiming for, but this would like spin into a very fine lace weight so easily. It's gorgeous. I'm loving it. All right, I'll check in again later. So here we have our Gotland 2-ply. I kept half the braid as a roving, and this is a BFL and C-cell. I believe the C-cell takes the acid dye, but I'm not 100% positive yet. What I'm going to do is put the dye on, and I'm going to cook it in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes. I want to see when we're done, we're going to spin up this roving, and I want to see how the colors look when you spin it from a roving as opposed to dye it as a yarn. So these are all going to be dyed together, so they're all going to be the same, and we'll see how that affects the final result. So I have red, orange, and yellow. And push this down, lift it up a bit to let that dye get underneath. Cover that up in aluminum foil. I'm going to pop it in the oven for 20 minutes. I've discovered I really like doing this in the oven. It is amazing. Thank you for all you geniuses telling me, try it this way. You're right. It's amazing. I just bought these cake pans at a local discount store. They were $6 a piece. cheap. So they're all committed now to dyeing. And apparently I'm going to be getting a lot of use out of them. So I'm going to cook this, well, I guess bake it for 20 minutes, and we'll be back to see what we got. Well, it has been 20 minutes. Let's see how our Gotland is doing. Well, there's just a teeny bit of red left in there. Not a whole lot. And some yellow. That's surprising. It's probably just been caught up in the fibers, so we'll just scoosh it around a bit. I'm pretty sure that that little bit will absorb as it cools. So I'm just going to cover it up again and let it cool. We have finished cooling our fibers. Here's the Gotland. We've got the 2-ply spun. We've got the roving, and then we have the VFL C-cell. So you can see, hopefully, there's an almost metallic sheen to the Gotland where the dye has struck. I think it's like, it looks so cool. And it's such a subtle tone. But let's get this out of the pan and get it into a rinse and see if we get any color bleed off. Oh yeah, there's still some color in that water. So I'm going to try washing and rinsing, and if that color doesn't come out, we may have to reheat with a little bit more citric acid. But we're going to try this first. Okay, so this is just like tepid water, and I'm going to use a little bit of my Pert Plus. This is the dye buster. It will strip off any loose dye very quickly. I may have added just a bit too much. Oh well, we will work with it. Now I dyed everything in one pan, so it was getting the same treatment right across the board. And you can see how bright that BFL came out. It's so pretty. I'm really happy with how that turned out. And here is our roving. Now I suspect we haven't had full color penetration. Yeah, see there's little, because I didn't unbraid it. All right, stop playing with it, you're gonna felt it. Okay, I'm gonna stop playing with that. When it's dry, I'll show you what I mean, but I probably did not get full color penetration, but that's kind of what I wanted. So yes, there is a little bit of color in there still. So, squish this. Can you see how pretty that yellow looks on that gray Gotland? Like it's beautiful. It's like a glowing gold. And in the roving, it's very, very tonal. I can't wait to see this dry. It's going to be amazing. You can't tell until it's dry. Everything always looks brighter when it's wet. Brighter, darker, deeper. You have to get it dry to get the full scope of what it looks like. Yeah, it's definitely coming clear this time, so I don't need to reheat it. Just some loose dye that we've washed out. So I'm gonna let that finish soaking, and then I will spin it out in my salad spinner and put it out to dry, and I will bring you back when it's dry. The results are in. First, we're going to look at the roving. Look at those colors. They just came out so amazing. And doing it over the Gotland, the over dyeing, you can tell I dyed without gloves, right? It's tonal. You can see that the darker fibers are still identified. Like it's not one uniform color. It's got depth and differences, and it's so pretty. Now, when I dyed this, it was still in a braid. So I do have patches of gray, and I am absolutely fine with that. It's going to further enhance the final yarn to have these variations, but I love this. I love it. I can't wait to spin it. But I will show you the yarn that was already spun before I dyed it. It's got an almost metallic look to it. It's just so pretty. And just for comparison, this is the same colors dyed on BFL C Cell. I made a lovely textured yarn with that. But you can see on white how these same dye colors look so very different. Still pretty, just so different. They're so bright on here, but the gray mutes it down and gives it this really dramatic color that just, it screams fall to me. I had one other skein, so that's just a straight chain ply. But it is absolutely amazing what overdying gray fiber does, how it changes the colors. Like, it's hard to believe that this and this were dyed exactly the same. Exactly the same. Same dye, same pan, same amount of time. Everything was exactly the same. The only difference was the fiber we started with. I think that this came out absolutely amazing. I'm absolutely stunned by how the Gotland takes the dye. And I'm just so excited. And I can't wait to spin this roving, because I think it's going to turn out absolutely amazing. And so I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Just a quick demonstration to show you what happens when you overdye colored wool. If you like this, do the stuff down below, because I do stuff like this all the time. Thanks for joining me. Bye.